Hi everybody, this is Kevin and welcome back to another video. And today I would like to share my thoughts on Ys 7, which is a game I am very conflicted on because there were quite a number of things I really enjoyed about it. However, there were an equal number of things I strongly disliked and even downright hated about this game, including not only the final boss, but really all the bosses in general. But in particular the final boss, because this is something I need to say right away. I could not defeat the final boss. And so, no, I did not beat this game. I attempted the final boss at least 30 times. I even did some level grinding. I fought it the first time I was level 50. And I thought, okay, I'm not a high enough level. Let me do some level grinding. Got up to level 60. I still couldn't defeat the final boss. So I rage quit and I said, let me just watch the ending on YouTube, which I did, and I'm happy I did because one of the strong points from this game are the characters and the story, and I thought the ending was fantastic, but that final boss was bullshit. And I will say, Dark Fact from Ys 1 is an easier and more fun final boss than the final boss of Ys 7, because at least I could defeat Dark Fact. I mean, I played that game on easy mode, but I still beat him. I know he's notorious for being the most challenging boss ever, but maybe on easy it's a different story. And yeah, I had my fair share of the Ys games now. I played Ys 1 and 2 on easy. I played Ys 6, the Ark of Nepishdom on normal. Ys, the Oath in Felghana on normal. And then in Ys Origins case, because there are 3 characters, I played through the first 2 characters on normal, but the third character on hard, because there's a trophy associated with that with PlayStation, and I did get it, which I'm very proud of. So, having a decent Ys track record, I said, okay, we're not going to go on hard mode with Ys 7 because that's too challenging, but we're not going to do easy because it's too easy. Let's go with normal. Because, people who play Ys games will tell you, normal on an Ys game is hard for any other game. And facing off against regular enemies, no problem. Hack and slash, a lot of fun. But then you get to the bosses, and not only do they have like millions of HP, they have so much friggin' HP, but they do these cinematic attacks. I'm not good at dodging. That's why I play turn-based RPGs. I'm not particularly good at action RPGs. So I'm trying to dodge the attacks. I can only dodge so many. I gotta waste all my healing items. It's like an endurance test. Whereas in Ys 6, Oath in Felghana, and Origin, yeah, the bosses are challenging, but they all have a pattern. You die a few times, but you learn the pattern, and they're fun. And then once you eventually defeat them, it's like, yeah, I did it. Whereas with Ys 7, it's like, oh my god, let's get this over with. I wanted to get back to just facing off against regular enemies and screw the bosses. But, I did manage to get through and at least watch the ending, right? So if you want to put an asterisk on this review because I didn't actually beat the game, be my guest. But I did see the ending, and I made it as far as the final boss before giving up. So, we'll start this video with the non-spoiler section, of course, and then move into spoilers, because I do like, one of the things we're going to get to is, like, the connectivity to the other Ys games, which they've mentioned in other games. Ys 1 and 2 are meant to go hand in hand, but in Ys 6, you have the whole thing with Raba showing up again. And a fun fact, the pirate girl from Ys 6, Terra, she's actually from Ys 5, and you have the connections there. Dogi going back to Felghana, his hometown of Redmont, and Ys 7 actually starts with the pirate Ladok from Ys 6 taking them to their new location here, the Altego Islands. Which, another fun fact, Altego was brought up all the way back in Ys 1. In Ys 1, I don't remember if it was the instruction manual or a guidebook or whatever, but there's all sorts of lore about Adol's other adventures, and they mention the Altego Islands as well as the 5 Dragons of Altego, all the way back in the 80s, and then they finally show up in Ys 7, which is so cool. So I do like it for the lore purposes, and there's a spoiler character, or should I say characters, who return, but we'll save that for later. But it's awesome, especially if you played Ys 6. But anyway, let's talk about when this game was released, which, of course, in Japan, it was released on the PSP in 2009, and then North America saw it in 2010, so only a year later. Most of these Ys games have had quite a number of years in between releases, And another fun fact is the fact that Ys the Oath in Felghana, that game was released in Japan in 2005, and then it wasn't released in North America until 2010, but it actually came a few months after Ys 7, and if you remember my review from Oath in Felghana, that game had full English voice acting for all the important cutscenes, and again, that came after Ys 7 in North America. So in Ys 7's case, there isn't voice acting for the cutscenes, but the characters all grunt, and when you switch them, they'll say like, "My turn, let's go!" You know, they say stuff like that. And Adol actually speaks, which I thought was interesting. I wonder, does he speak in the other games? I guess I'll figure that out once I play them, but I thought it was interesting because he's the silent protagonist, and now he's grunting and saying, "Let's go!" Anyway, so it was re-released on PC in 2012 and then worldwide in 2017, which I played the PC version because I don't have a PSP, and I'm not sure if they made any quality of life improvements. I would imagine they did, but, you know. So, Ys 7 also introduces a new system. Ys 6, the Arc of Nepishtim, introduced the Nepishtim engine, which carried over into Oath in Felghana and was, dare I say, perfected in Ys Origin. Well, Ys 7 brings forth what I call the party system, and that continues in the subsequent titles in Memories of Celceta, Ys 8, and Ys 9. I think Ys 10, I don't know what you would call that, because from what I've seen, it's just Adol and then the other girl, so there's only 2 party members. But I did, on paper, I like the party system, but I never really used it much because as you progress, there's quite a number of characters, and I really only like to use like 3 of them. But they want you to mix and match because they have different abilities. They have Slash, Strike, and Pierce. And I mainly found myself using Adol and Dogi just because they're with you at the start of the game, and Adol's the protagonist. And you know, I just felt more comfortable using them, especially Adol, because, you know, it's just what I'm used to. But you'll get other characters like a ranged attacker who uses bow and arrow or magic, and then you'll have other characters who use like mallets and really heavy weapons. And I didn't like using them because they're just so slow, so I just stuck to using Adol because he's more fast-paced. But yeah, you know, it's an Ys game. The music's fantastic. The song we're listening to in the background is actually called "A Lost Harmony Among People." And is it just me, or does this sound like Shizuku's theme from Trails from Zero and Trails to Azure? So good. It's the same composers, but the Falcom music, you know, it has its reputation from the heavy metal, which you'll get that in the boss fights and the field and all that, and it's great. But I really do like these slower songs. So you can also learn skills, which I thought was cool. You can craft, you find materials, craft weapons, and once you craft a new weapon, it gets like a new skill. It kind of reminded me of Final Fantasy IX, how you would have to wear the armor or use the weapon to learn the skill, and that's the case here. You got to get it to at least level 1, and then you learn it for good. You can map it out. So I thought that was fun. And like I said, I had a great time fighting against the regular enemies, the interactions with the characters. I really enjoyed that stuff. But once it came to the bosses, I really hated it. I hated the bosses, and as I said at the beginning of the review, the final boss was awful. But yeah, let's go through. You see some of the characters there on the title. The art style is a little different. There's Adol and Dogi, which Dogi joins the party. I thought that was awesome. One thing I do need to say though, and this might be coming off because I just played Ys Origin, and that's how I'm kind of conflicted now with Adol as a silent protagonist, because in Ys Origin, all the main characters spoke and were heavily involved in the story. And yeah, Adol's involved in the story too. But Dogi speaks for him. Like, Adol will nod and there'll be like text like, "Adol, you know, stood firm of his decision." And then Dogi says something. But it's like, in the other games, the characters were all talking. And I almost feel like I don't really care for the silent protagonist anymore. Like, in my early Ys reviews, I'm comparing Ys as the better version of Legend of Zelda because of the comparisons to Link, how they're both silent protagonists, and how you go to dungeons, you get the new item, you traverse, etc., etc. And just seeing so much more character development in Ys Origin, and now going back to this, where Dogi's doing all the talking for Adol, I'm just kind of conflicted about that. But the other characters do make up for it. Dogi's awesome. he mentions a number of times about how he's the wall crusher. Like, there's an instance where Dogi, Adol, and another guy gets locked up, and he's like, I'm the wall crusher. I'll just bust down this door, you know. Like, and he's on the ship or whatever when they have to go to the other island. So cool. But here's some other characters that show up in the game. Maya and Tia. They're not party members, but they're really important for the main story. I love their dynamic. Great artwork for them. They're adopted sisters, and Maya is actually mute. So it was cool to see that sort of perspective and the storytelling with that. Here's another character, Aisha, who uses a bow and arrow. Again, like, I didn't really care, and I should have probably been used to that because of how Unica and Hugo play differently in East Origin, but I just prefer using Adol, just using my sword, as opposed to using the bow and arrow. Elk, he's another one who is more close range, more fast. Mustafa, who wields the malice, he's a slow attacker. And then Krushi, who is Mustafa's sister, who also joins the party. Mishra, who is the blind mage of the Wind Temple. That's another cool thing I liked about the game, is the different areas where you have like the Wind Temple, you have the forest, you go to the Great Tree, you have the Sea Temple, you have the Fire Temple, all these different places. I thought that was really cool. And overall, I mean, I know I had my rant in the beginning of the game, and that's because I didn't beat the game, but I just didn't like the bosses. I liked pretty much everything else about the game. You know, I don't care about graphics. You could tell this is a handheld game. It's a PSP game. I honestly prefer the graphical style of E6, Oath and Felghana, and Origin, but they're moving in a different direction here to the party system and trying to tell more grand stories, which the story got pretty emotional in certain instances, absolutely, with Tia, Maya, with Sias, and some of the other characters. So, yeah, do I recommend the game? I mean, you should probably play it on easy. If you're better at action RPGs, maybe you'll fare better than me. But yeah, I mean, I had fun with it. I just didn't like the bosses. That's my biggest problem. But the problem with that is there's a lot of bosses. You go to each area, you gotta fight a new boss, and so, you know, it breaks up the game, and then you spend all this time just with HP sponges. And I explained earlier why I like the bosses in the other games more. So, anyway, this is my spoiler section. So those who haven't played the game, you should click away. Otherwise, we're going to get to some spoilers, including the end of the game and the returning character, which is fucking Kino. So let's get right to that. Spoilers inbound. So the returning character, which I was going crazy when I saw him, because before he rejoins the party, you sort of see him walking around, is Geis from E6. He returns and he joins the party, and it's so badass because he was my favorite character in E6. He had so many great moments, how he opposed his brother Ernest, and just excellent moments. And then he shows up here, joins the party, and not only does he join the party and he return, but the three fairies from E6 also return, Ju, Sarah, and Ziza. And they show up again, and there's his special attack. He uses all their three elements and unleashes it. So it was so cool to see all of them again. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And, you know, East has sort of paid homage to previous events and had returning characters and things like that. Like, even in East Origin, you had that dude named Kishkul, which in E6 they had the ruined city of Kishkul. So that was cool. But seeing Geis and also seeing the fairies was just awesome, man, because Geis is just a badass. However, I do need to address this, and that's the fact that what a downgrade Geis's art got from E6 to E7. Take a look at this. So that's his art from E6. That's also his art from E7 to the right, but this is a close-up of it. And you be the judge. Which one do you prefer? That tells me all you need to know. If you didn't pick the one on the left, then you have bad taste. I'm just gonna say it. But yeah, Geis returns. I fucking loved it. So that was cool. And then at the very end, of course, we get the reveal. The big villain is actually Tia, who ends up being Tia Luna. And she's bringing forth the end of the world. We gotta stop her. And at the very, very end, Maya finally speaks. Remember I said she was a mute early in the game? She finally speaks and she, no, don't go. Such a heartfelt moment, man. And Tia tells her, never forget to smile. And then the game ends. Great ending, great music in the credits. Overall, I mean, for what it's worth, I did like the game. I just didn't like the bosses. And as I explained at the start of the video, I couldn't finish the game. I couldn't do it because the final boss sucked. And to elaborate more on that, you fight Sias before the final save point. Then you get to the final save point. You gotta fight Tia, who's Tia Luna. And then you fight the final boss, which is 3 phases. I only ever beat the first phase, and I got like halfway through the second phase. Which the way they did that was kind of cool, actually, because you had to use every character. And I think the last character was Adol by himself, paying homage to, you know, Adol just being one character in the previous game. So, again, I think I said earlier in the video, this is like a transition game because it hopefully leads to the better party system games of Memories of Celceta 8 and 9. And I mean, I've heard for years that Ys 8 is like the best Ys game in the series. So I look forward to playing that eventually. Obviously, the next Ys game I'm going to play is going to be Memories of Celceta. But after this one, after the sour taste in my mouth, not even being able to finish it, I'm going to take a break from Ys for now. I do not know which game I'm going to play next, but you'll find out soon enough, I suppose. I think I need to play another turn-based game because, you know, you guys probably already know already. I'm more of a fan of turn-based games. I do like action games, action RPGs, but turn-based RPGs are my jam. And I'm in more control there because I can just wait and put my commands, think things through, as opposed to mindlessly hacking and slashing, which is the way I play these games. So maybe that's my fault, but it is what it is. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And I should also, you probably already know already, but this is my least favorite Ys game. My favorite's Origin. This is my least favorite. This is worse than Ys 1 and 2. Ys 1 and 2 are actually really good games that people just sort of dismiss because of the bump system and because they're old or whatever, but they're good. And Dark Fact was an easier final boss than the final boss of Ys 7. And that's a fact. Peace out.
99.